Welcome to Super Agents Live. This is the one place where you can come and hear the most successful people in real estate. You'll hear how these super agents built their businesses, how they stay productive, and how they stay motivated. Who am I? My name's Toby Salgado, and I made my first $1 million in real estate. And I'm your host for the next 30 minutes while we talk to yet another amazing real estate entrepreneur. Stay tuned.
Let's go! Yeah!
Hey everybody, what's up? How's it going? How's your day? How's your week shaping up? Boy, you know what? For me, summer is ending. Kids are back in school, and I'm getting back to work. I've taken a lot of time off this summer, and it's good to have my office quiet where I can focus. Hey, listen, here's what's up. Today's episode, today's guest really is part expose, and then we get into the training. Now, I want to tell you right now, the good stuff happens around minute 28. And the reason it took so long to get into the actual content, and the content's good, it's worth it, is because this guy's got an interesting life story. I mean, this guy, we talk about, you know, how he went from having like a black market candy business when he was a kid to then starting a record label and you know, getting into show business and then getting into real estate. Now, that process for me, I thought was important enough to really cover it because each of those things built on the next. And, you know, what he learned from the record label, from, you know, show business, and taking, you know, managing a talent, a singer, taking them from a no-name, promoting them, making them famous, and then finally unleashing them to the world. He did that exact thing with his career. He promoted himself like a celebrity, got his name out there, everybody knew him, and all of a sudden he just was crushing it. And that's what he teaches other people to do today. So, if it's worth getting to it, but if you feel like it's dragging and you're like at minute 15 and you're like, okay, I've heard enough about the story, that's fine. Fast forward to around minute 30 and it will get good. And look, all of it's good. I love getting into people's stories, backstories. So, and I think you guys do too. But I just kind of re-listened to the episode when I was writing these notes, and I recognize that. So I just want to let you know, hey, really quickly here. If you haven't yet, go to the site. I would love for you to go to the site, go to the tab where it says grow your business, see what we have there. And I'm thinking about creating another. I'll tell you a quick story. I've had 2 conversations this week where I got an email from a listener. They were newer into real estate, and they said, what do I do? And I said, book a time on my calendar. I'll give you 15 minutes. And both of those times, that 15 minutes ended up in an hour. Like, because once I just get my motor running, I couldn't. But I realized that I pretty much gave these guys the same hour. And after that hour, they're like, man, now I have a plan. This is great. Like this, I wish I would have known this, you know, a month or 2 or 3 ago. So I'm actually thinking about creating a little video of that little small training, hour-long training, and putting it out there. So let me know if that's something that you guys would want to see. Just send me an email. But go to the site, see on Grow Your Business, see what we have there. Viral cast, we have radio, we have a bunch of stuff that I know that we can help you grow your business. Join the conversation. Find me on Twitter at Super Agents Live. And are we missing something? I feel like I'm missing something. Well, the other thing is, you know, if you haven't yet, subscribe to the show on iTunes and you know, get these podcasts like delivered right up to your phone. You don't have to listen to me, or go to the site. You just get them. That's it. Thanks for listening. Talk to you guys next week. I hope you like the show. Stand by. Today on the show, today's guest was actually a referral from my buddy Pat Hyben. So if you know, Pat was just recently featured on the show. Now, today's guest is a listing agent. That's what he focuses on. In his first 10 years, he got about 1,000 listings. And these days, he's an author. He's got a few books. He's a national speaker and a trainer. I'm thrilled to welcome Knolly Williams. What's up, Knolly?
Hey, Toby. How you doing, buddy?
Really
Glad
good.
to be on the show, man.
Yeah. All right. So listen, I want to get into what you're doing and how you've had so much success. But before we get there, I always like to know a little bit of background, right? The man behind the machine. So take a minute, tell everybody about who Knolly is.
Toby, kind of like yourself, I'm a serial entrepreneur. I started selling at door to door at the age of 12. And little by little, I got into the entertainment industry, the music business. So by the time I was 13, 14, I knew that I wanted to be a rapper. I wanted to do rap music. And by the time I was 22, I started a record label. And it was gospel music, gospel rap. And we grew that to be the number one gospel rap label in the world. We had 18 artists. We had 14 employees on the label. And it was quite a success. We're making $150,000 a month in that business. When the music industry tanked around 2002, 2001, we pretty much lost everything. We had a 5-year contract with EMI Capital. They gave us a $650,000 signing advance when we signed with them. And we ended up owing them, quite a bit of money back. so we ended up in debt. So at the age of 33, I said, what am I going to do now? Like, what's next for me? And real estate was kept being the peg that kept coming up. So I jumped into the game, the real estate game, and I took my first 74 days in the business. I took 21 listings. And then I went to take over 1,000 listings my first 10 years. But what I like to do more than anything, Toby, is teach. I'm a trainer, a teacher at heart. So that's what I've been kind of dedicating myself to the last couple of years.
Okay, awesome. If we go back to when you're 12, because that very much parallels my background, what were you selling door to door?
There was a magazine or newspaper back then called Grit. And I would pretty much sell anything I could, but I started with that. I started selling newspapers. And what you would, the way that publication worked is you would order them not online. It was a mail order back then. So you'd order like so many copies at a certain price and you'd resell them. And I loved the process of profit. I liked being able to take a little something and blow it into 2 or 3 times that number. So then I started selling candy. That was kind of my next thing, where I would, my mom would give me $5 every morning, and I would hit the local store. This is in LA, where I grew up in California. And on the way to school, I'd get all this, Starburst and Now and Laters, for those of you that remember those. And I would break those packs open, and I would sell them individually, 10 cents each. And I would take that $5 and turn it into $20. So I just love that whole process.
And then,
I did that for years.
Right, and I think that's great because I mean, those little businesses are great, especially early on, because you from the beginning you were focusing on what your net is, right, not your gross.
Right.
And I think that's
absolutely
too many people. I have people come on the show and they're like, yeah, dude, I did $1 million net. I did $750,000. I'm sorry. GCI, but
yeah.
But
right.
But what do they walk away with? And a lot of these people I know for a fact, are $1 million producers, GCI, and they look great, they have great clothes, but they don't have any money, like because they're not netting it. So I think that's great. I think that's great background for you. Now tell me this, because we're gonna transition into how you took this experiences and wrapped it into your label and then finally real estate. What did you do when you took that $5 and you were successful in buying candy retail and then breaking it up into smaller, and you turn that 5 into 20? What did you now do with that 20? I'm just curious. Did you go 4x on your product, or did you pocket 15 and stick with a 5? And this is a question about scale.
Yeah, that's a great. Yeah. So I would always put some away for save some, and then now. Granted, being young, 12, 13 years old, you have, you're a consumer. Not all 13-year-olds are, but I like to have certain clothing and different things like that. So I would always reinvest at least double. Like for example, if I didn't go 4x,
okay.
but so I didn't scale it to that point, but I would go like 2x. So I would invest 10 and spend 10. And that would kind of be my daily routine. Or if I was saving up for something, I was big into video games. I was a gamer for years. I would basically save away, put a certain amount away for the newest game or game console.
Yeah, and you were playing
also
back then. You were playing Atari and
computers.
Intellivision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in ColecoVision and
right.
Atari. Yeah, all of them. Yeah.
So did you? And this is my last question. We can move on. But did you again? Because I had very similar experiences.
Mm-hmm.
What I did was I started with a candy, and it wasn't candy for me. But if you then you personally like those video games, right? Did you go to a higher price point product for you, Knolly?
Yeah, I did eventually. I went to higher and higher price points, and then I ended up figuring out how to buy the candy wholesale and sell them by the pack as well.
Interesting.
So, I mean, I definitely scaled it up quite a bit. And it was sort of a black market deal because, in a way, because you're in school and nobody was doing it. I mean, back then nobody was doing it, so it wasn't even a rule that you couldn't do it.
Right.
Nowadays, you really probably can't do stuff like that. But
well, yeah, for sure.
But yeah, that was the way.
And nowadays, I think especially with shows like Shark Tank. I mean, little kids are. Everybody's thinking about doing a startup. So I'm sure that there's tons of competition when it comes to candy these days. All right, so
true.
So you're 14. True. You find out you have this entrepreneurial streak. You obviously turn into a pretty decent sales guy. Now you want to be a rapper. Like, tell us about that transition for you.
So that was I always was into acting, theater, drama, and I liked poetry a lot. Like I loved to write. I learned in 5th grade. I learned how to write poetry, and I just loved doing it. And so, and I also learned theater in 5th grade. So I liked performing on stage, and I liked to write poems. So when rap came out, that was probably about 83. Man, I just got into it big time. I got everything, like the turntables, the mixer. I mean, I had all. I would make mixtapes, and I just had a gift for lyrics. Writing lyrics, and I loved to read. When I was in 5th grade, I was reading on a second-year college level in 5th grade. So it was one of the gifts that I really, really, really enjoyed. And so I just started, writing and performing and doing whatever I could locally. And little by little, I started, going to studios. And by the time I was 16, I was recording, demos and stuff like that. And then I would sell. That was another thing. I figured out that you could, you can get the back then it was cassettes for pretty cheap, and then we'd sell those for $10. It cost about $1 to make them.
Right. So your ability, I mean, I think words, right? Words are super important, right? If you're 5th grade reading at a college level, right, you could persuade that other 5th grade kid who's reading, 5th grade level for sure.
Yeah, vocabulary is so important. Absolutely.
So was that, and my question to you, Knolly, was that just, were you just gifted in that regard, or do you think you honed that? And how?
Well, it was definitely something I was interested in. And, the curious thing about the way my mind works is if I'm interested in it, I will pursue it. If it's not interesting to me, and maybe most people are this way, but it was, literature was something I was very interested in. So I just pursued it. Same thing with computer programming. At 12 years old, I was taking computer programming classes. I didn't really pursue that to the degree, but I was very interested in it. So it's just kind of my turn of mind. It was partially gift, and then I honed it for sure, because any gift has to be honed. You could have the greatest gifts in the world, but if you don't hone those, with time on the task over time, those gifts will either be lost or forgotten. They have to be steadily used in order to increase in strength and value.
Absolutely.
And I'm a lifelong learner, so I'm still learning.
I think you have to be
every day.
So how did you so you had this passion for words, you had, you wanted to be a rapper. How did you then translate that into I want to say, a profit motive of starting this label. Because, that's, if you are 15, 16 years old, which it sounds like is kind of when that's a pretty big venture. Like, how did that start for you?
Yeah, and I would always call it the process of profit. I didn't know any other term for what I was doing in taking something and making it, expand, and also making it scalable. So at that time, I just knew that it was what I wanted to do, so I pursued it, and I figured out that you had to go to a recording studio and you had to do this. And I would read, and that is really a gift because. Back then, before the internet, you'd have to go to the library to do research on, and I would read anything I could about the music business. There was very little out there, but I would try to find out about it as much as I could, so that by the time I was 20 years old, I was pretty dead set on starting this record company. And by the time I was 22, that's what I started doing full time. I mean, and I'm 46 now. I've been an entrepreneur at the age since 22. I've never worked for anyone else since that age.
So Knolly, even the question that's been rattling around in my head, right? Even from going back to your candy days, is we all need to. Number one, have a niche, right? And if we can have a niche, then Absolutely. We can have a demographic. And if we know our demographic, our avatar, we can ideally market to those people. Now, for you, Knolly, right, you wanted to get into rap. You wanted to get in the music business high level, one. Number two, you wanted to get into the rap genre. And then you got into this niche, which is gospel. Why did you go down this gospel rap path rather than NWA?
Yeah, so when I was, I grew up, when I was 10 years old, we moved to Compton, California. And so I grew up more or less in the, around all the guys like, Ice-T was in our neighborhood and stuff like that. So when my mom had her master's degree in psychology.
Wow.
So the reason why she moved to Compton in the first place was because it was the cheapest place in California to move. There's a reason for that. She found out when she got there. She was moving from the East Coast. So when we got there, we ended up moving to a little suburb outside of. It was still in LA County, and I started getting into some kind of seedy activities. Not the best. I took up sales, but it was in a kind of a seedy area, not the best area of sales that you could be in. So I got into a little bit of trouble in my I was a wayward kid. I ended up being a little bit wayward. Well, I say pretty wayward, but by the time I was 18, I really had recommitted. I grew up in a Christian home and I recommitted my life to the Lord, and I wanted to get away from all that. So my uncle invited me to live in Austin, which I thought was crazy. I was like, man, I'm not going to move to Texas. I'll come visit Texas. I'm not going to move there. So I came to Austin for the idea of a 2 or 3 month sort of sabbatical to get away, kind of recharge, re-energize, dedicate myself back to God. And I just never left. I mean, I fell in love. It was like an oasis. It was a land of opportunity for me. And, I got married at the age of 21, just after 21. And, my wife and I have been married almost 25 years now, and we just, it just became a land of opportunity. So that's what kind of took me toward I was like, man, I can't really do gangster rap, which is what I always really wanted to do.
Sure.
But, and for a while I just gave up my dream completely, but I felt like I could still do it, but as long as it was positive, uplifting, and Christian, good quality music, that I could still pursue it. And that's what I did. I sent my demo out to all these record labels, but it still was very kind of gangster. Like my first CD was called, or album, I guess you call it, it was called Reflections of an Ex-Criminal. My second one was called Mind of a Gangster. So it was still, still that kind of mentality, but it was all very uplifting and positive, So I couldn't find a label that would sign me. So I started figuring out, how can I do this on my own? And that's basically what I did. I started pursuing on my own. And like I say, by the time I was 24, we had national distribution. We went with a distributor that had 42 labels. And by the time I was about 26, we were the number one label at that small distributor. It was a pretty decent-sized distributor out of California. But that sent Capitol Records and EMI calling. So that by the time I was 29, we had signed a 5-year contract with EMI Capital where they gave me $650,000 advance, which I would tell everybody was a bonus. But you know, Toby, what an advance is, right?
Yeah, absolutely. and I do want to talk about that. I want to talk about that, but I think I want to go back because this is pretty.
Okay.
I think there's value in the audience for this, right? So you want to get into rap. I mean, look, what you did, what Stryper did in the 80s, right? Stryper is heavy metal Christian rock, and you took this, underground rap stuff, but overlaid a Christian thing on it. Now, was that from a business perspective? Did you do it because you knew, like, okay, I'm the only guy doing this, right? And it hasn't been done before.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm going to stand out. Or was it, did your passion and your viewpoint just happen to collide and you sort of settled for this, gospel rap and it just so happened to work? Did you get lucky or were you deliberate is my real question.
I was very deliberate, very, very deliberate. At the same time, it was in good conscience, I couldn't do gangster rap anymore. So it was either I'm not going to do it at all, or and I'm going to pursue something else, or which I have a strong belief that you can succeed, in any, like if I was selling plumbing supplies, I would be successful. You know what I'm saying? So, but I think there's more happiness in that success when you're doing what you love, what you really enjoy and what God put you on earth to do. So in my case, it was like I couldn't really, in good conscience, do the other.
Okay.
And if I could pursue this other one, I'm going to do it with purpose. And I am that kind of person that will burn the boats and say, you know what, this will succeed. And it did succeed for a long time until it failed. Yeah.
And so all right, so let's talk about the $650 grand. So you get this advance, right? Which you have to explain that to people on how that actually works, because book writing's very similar.
Yeah, it's very similar to book writing. So essentially, when you sign, we were doing very well, and we got a call one day from Eddie DeGarmo. DeGarmo and Key was a big Christian group back in the day. And he called us to introduce us to Capitol Records and EMI and all that. And so as in the process of it, my attorney was the same attorney, Willie Nelson, and a lot of other big acts, right? And so when we were negotiating the deal, he negotiated for us a $500,000 up front and then another $150 within 90 days of signing. Well, when you get that kind of money, it has to be paid back. And so the way ours was structured was we had to begin paying it back on year 2 of our deal. We had a 5-year contract. So on year 2, we had to start paying that back, X number of dollars a month. And it's kind of funny because even though I had this business and I had employees and all this, we were operating, we had a 6,000 square foot home. We had a 1,500 square foot office building on the property, 1,200 square foot recording studio, on 10 acres. And so it was like a dream. Bought that property when I was 26 years old. And so, in retrospect, it's like who gives, a 29-year-old $500,000, $600,000. So did I do all the stuff that was very smart with the money? No, not at all. And so about 2.5 years into our 5-year deal, we got a call because the music industry was just reeling. When, digital came out, it was blindsided several people. MP3, it was the age of MP3, and we didn't see it coming, and neither did the big boys. So we got a call from them, and they basically reneged on their 5-year deal. They said, look, we're 2.5 years in. Things aren't going well for us. We need to cut labels. Your numbers come up. and you got two choices. You can either fight this in court because we know we got a 5-year deal, or we can basically let you off of we can forgive the debt that you owe us. And at that point, I owed still about, Toby, I think I owed about $350 of the $650 still. So I started, being a man of economics. I said, wait a minute, you'll forgive the $350 and we walk away clear. And that was the deal, and that's what we did. We took that, but even though we were debt free at that time, at least in that vein, I mean, we still had a mortgage and all that. So in that vein, we took that deal and we went on down the road, started our own distribution company, distributed to about 700 stores. I had a whole staff that ran that business until we kind of played it out. The music industry has changed, and the only way that we could earn money was through CD sales. And so it just wasn't happening anymore. I mean, our sales had gone down 70%. So it was time to do something else. Does that make sense?
No, totally. But I thought where the real money was at, and maybe that's today and not back then, but was live events. Mm-hmm. I thought, concerts. I thought that's where the money was at.
So here's the thing. So there's 7 ways for an artist to make money, but there's only one way for a record label to make money. So if you have a record label, you have to sell product. That's the only way you make money. Now, if you're an artist, the number one way that you make money is through live events, period. Hands down. Because, if you're getting a 12% royalty on a $15 CD, I mean, you're making, $1.50, maybe $2 a unit, right?
Yep.
But if you do, and even if you sold 100,000 CDs, you might make a couple $100,000. Well, you could make that on just a couple of 2 or 3 events.
Right.
So it's hands down, yeah. But now, if most record labels don't control the live event side of it.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I didn't know.
Those are booking agencies. Yeah, the booking agencies cover that part of it. Now, you could, as a record label, start a booking agency, but it would be a separate and distinct corporation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the industry changes, you get washed out. That's pretty nice of Capital to just say, hey, look, we'll walk away, keep the $350. That's awesome.
It was, no doubt.
So now you have a mortgage. You have this beautiful house. You're living the dream, but now you still got to pay for it. Is this when now you get into real estate?
Yeah. So at that point, I reluctantly decided to get into real estate. I took about we had some money saved up, so I took about 8-9 months to decide what I was going to do. Got my real estate license, read Millionaire Real Estate Agent, book by Gary Keller. I read the book twice before I started practicing real estate. And in the book, I learned that I should focus on listings. And I had already learned a lot from the record business. For example, the biggest thing I learned was, in order to do sales, if you have a new artist, you got to make that person famous. You got to make them well known. And so in my case, what I did was I just decided I'm a new artist coming into a new, coming into a new territory. So I've got to become famous. What can I do to become well known? And so that's kind of the avenue that I pursued from the very beginning. That was kind of my next transition.
So how did you become well known? I mean, because look, everything. I say this all the time, but everything is about exposure, mm-hmm. right? And I would say exposure is the new social currency. It's a new social capital that we're all dealing with. So absolutely. Back, and in what year is this? You're 33. Is it 93?
No. This is 03.
03. Yeah. Okay. 03.
Yeah, 03. Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Well, because you and I are the same age. I'm 46. Yeah. You're 46. So, okay.
I know we try to forget that, but hey, we're still young though.
I feel young, man.
I do too.
I still ride skateboards and rock climb, and so I'm pretty active. Anyhow, okay.
Exactly.
What did you do? Yeah. So it's 03. 9/11 has just happened. Okay, so in 2001, we're starting to get back to the new normal as an economy, as a nation. What did you do in Austin? And by the way, the internet is not nearly what it was today, because as you I'm sure remember, I mean, the internet pretty much melted in 2000. I was in the Silicon Valley in '99, right? So the internet, there was not Twitter, there was not Facebook. What did you do in 2003 to become well known?
Yeah, so and this is not something I would teach now.
Okay.
I've got a whole new bag of tricks, but back then it was all about what my wife and I did was we moved to a small town. Because honestly, Toby, I mean, we lost everything. We lost our house. We lost I've been through foreclosure. I've been through bankruptcy. I've been through all that. And so we were able to sell our house at that point. We had good equity in that property, but I didn't want to sell it, And so we ended up moving to a small town, which was in South Texas. And I started all over. Like, I didn't know anybody, but I just wanted to get away. Like, I was running away, if you will. And some of you listening maybe have been in that situation where, you've lost a lot and you felt like you just wanted to not be around the people you knew because you were a failure. I was a failure, and it doesn't matter how successful you've been. When you fail, that's all you feel is a failure.
But it hurts worse. I mean, it hurts worse if, it's all about the length, the distance that you fell, right? If you are this guy with a, big deal guy and then you fail, that hurts way worse than if you're some construction guy and you have a bad run of it. Okay, so you moved to a small town. How did you put yourself on the map? Well, briefly.
So what I did... real briefly. So first thing I did was it was all in the show business called smoke and mirrors. I did 4 billboards. I started with a 5,000 house farm postcards, and I did back then I had through all the local papers. I had nice advertising in those, and of course internet was really not really existent at this point. I mean, it was not anything that would be favorable. So I just did things that really pushed me out there in a big way. Does that make sense? These are not things that I would recommend now. I mean, I'm big into what the 2 things that I teach are what I call fame and efficiency. I teach agents how to become famous and how to become a lot more efficient in the business they have. Like you said, you could be making $1 million and only netting 100,000. That's not an efficient business model. No.
So what in terms of the fame, what do you teach today?
So now what I teach are kind of my big 3, the tools that I use. So I have a book. It's like, what would a famous person have? They have a book, they have a press kit, and they've got a movie. In the music industry, we might call it a demo reel, or in the show business or in the movie business, they might call it something else. So that's basically my book is, it's a book that I wrote for sellers. It's 80 pages, and it's actually a book. It's not a pre-listing package. It's not spiral bound. It's a book, perfect bound book. And with my picture on it, my name, how to successfully sell your house, consider it sold, all that. So, that helps me position me to look like I know what I'm doing. Then I've got my press kit, which people would call a pre-listing package, but I draw it up as a press kit, like you would see any movie star would have, And I teach people, you want to become famous. You should be very well known in the areas that you serve. And that doesn't mean you have to be haughty, arrogant, proud, boastful. It just means, Jesus was famous, but he wasn't any of those things. It just means that people know who you are. If they don't know about you, obviously you don't exist. And then my pre-listing video is sort of like my demo reel. If I was an athlete, I would have a demo reel or highlights, video. So this is kind of the same thing that I have. So, and what I teach people is, consider yourself as if you're running for mayor. Same mindset. If you were running for mayor of your city, what would that look like? And then running for realtor really doesn't look any different. You really want to position into a point where, like most people, when I ask them, how did you hear about me, which I think is the most important question you can ask anybody, most of them don't know how they heard about me. They're like, man, well, everybody knows who you, and I say, well, how did you hear about me? well, man, I don't remember. Like they know that they can't remember the source because they see me everywhere. Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense. I mean, and you know, that's the ideal situation. And all these things that you talk about. I mean, I encourage everybody to do the same thing. Write a book, right? Whether it's it can be an ebook, you know, but if you actually physically have a product, that's better. And let's say that somebody has these things. They've sat down. And by the way, somebody can write an 80-page book. I mean, they can do that over the weekend, right? I mean, and I think everybody should do that. But now, I still need to get that in front of people. How do you do that?
Right. Yeah. So I would, and this falls back on the other big three, which is when it comes to lead generation. So, you know, our biggest market is obviously our sphere of influence. I'll just say the big three: your sphere of influence, your farm, your geographic farm, and your niche. You know, and I tend to use those terms a little bit differently, Toby. So obviously, the sphere of influence are the people that you know. 70% of people that list their house go with someone that they know. You know, it's based on National Association of Realtors. So that's going to be 70% of your business is your database, people, your list. So you got to get out there and meet people. you got to build your list. That's probably the most important thing you can do.
Absolutely.
And then it's critical, mission one. And then the farm is really a geographical territory, a region or an area. And you can start off with 500 houses. It doesn't have to be huge. You can start off with that. And then your niche, the way I define a niche is it could be like expireds, for sale by owners. It could be divorce is a great niche, probate, golf course community, waterfront properties, condominiums, etc. I mean, you could go on and on. I know a guy that owns oneacreplus.com. His niche is homes on one or more acres. Now, that's not all he does. It's just a percentage of his business. I know another gal, they own, they call themselves the church ladies out of Atlanta. And their niche is they sell churches. And churches sell for a lot of money.
Interesting.
So that's the niche. It's not all that they do, but if you have all three of those areas rocking, you can have a very successful listing business.
And I think it's important to point out for everybody listening, I think, when you think of a farm or think of a niche, I think a lot of times when people think of a farm, they just automatically go geographic. It's a geographic farm. However, you can farm a demographic, right? And that's kind of what these church people, girls, ladies are doing, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
So you can farm a geo or you can farm a demographic. And I think that's important. And again, that ties hand in hand with your farm and niche. Now, going back to your sphere of influence, right? You said 70% of your business is going to be your sphere. And again, something that I always preach is that your list is the most valuable spoke in your business.
Absolutely.
We all need to be deliberate about building that list. In what ways, Knolly, what's the most efficient way, right? You talk about profitability and efficiency. What's the most efficient way to go out and build our list?
I think the two most efficient ways that I've seen is internet marketing and face-to-face, what I call public speaking. So internet marketing and public speaking. When you think about public speaking, you're thinking about like doing meetups, and a lot of agents don't realize if you have a skill or a trade or something that most people did something before real estate. Most of the people that I teach, they had some other. They were in the computers or whatever, IT, whatever it might have been. And most people have very valuable skills that they can get out there and start teaching at different meetups. And what I say, a lot of people don't like to do public speaking, but you can change the world from the front of the room. When you get in front of people, they start seeing you as an authority, and it doesn't have to be real estate related training. That's the whole point. Anytime you get in front of people, they want to learn more about what you do. Like if you know how to do CPR, why not do CPR classes, a couple of times a month and get 20, 30 people into those classes, and really sell. And the internet marketing could be to really sell and push your, live events in your community that you're doing.
Right,
if you're good at gardening, baking,
I was going to say, great idea. But I think, if you know CPR, you should in the springtime go to all the elementary schools, all the middle grade schools, and go, listen, hey, Mr. Principal, I would love to throw this event, right? Because kids are going to be swimming. Let me do a quick class on CPR. You invite the kids, you invite the parents, and all of a sudden they're like, this Knolly guy, man, he's a good guy, right? What else is he going to
do? Exactly. That you got it down. I mean, you could run away with this. I mean, this is stuff you already know, Toby. But unfortunately, a lot of agents get stuck. Like, I've got to teach a first-time home buying class. Or there's nothing wrong with those. You should be teaching that kind of stuff, or how to sell your house, whatever it might be. But so I think building a list, though, when you think about the number of people you want on your list, like people that they know who you are. How do you build a list of 1,000 people quickly? You got to, in my opinion, you got to start getting out there networking, or like you said, if you could build it very quickly if you start basically getting in front of people,
right?
In groups. And
I think going back to not to jump all over your stuff, because you and me we're in sync on this stuff, and I'll tell you, we have an arm, we have something called Viralcast with a K, and we encourage people your sphere are people that that know you, like you, trust you, right? And we got to get in front of as many people as possible. This business is all about relationships. We encourage people to start their own podcast, and it's amazing, man. In terms of the amount of people that actually sign up for the thing, it's not nearly as much as it should be.
See, that's on another level. See, that to me is the epoch, if you will, or the zenith. Like once you get it, exactly, there you go. So once you get into that, now we're really talking. So for example, a person says, well, I need 1,500 people or 2,000. In my case, I want to have 100,000 on my list, but somebody else might say, hey, I want 2,000-3,000. Well, what's the best way you can get 2,000 or 3,000 people into a list? People that if someone said, hey, do you know Sally Smith, they'd say, oh yeah, I've heard. Right there, podcasting is probably going to be the best way to do it.
What?
Radio.
Oh yeah, radio as a whole for sure. But yeah, right. But here's the deal, right? When we go it's a great idea to go out and teach that CPR class at the elementary school, but you're trading, right? It's like trading dollars for hours, right? It only works when I actually do it. Something like a podcast is working 24/7 in the background. Exactly.
And now you've got your built-in SOI, the people that already know, like, and trust you. You've got them promoting and marketing, your podcast.
Absolutely.
So you're building a list even incrementally that way. So I love that.
Yeah, perfect. Well, you should do one, Knolly. Okay, so public speaking.
Yes.
When it comes to, let's jump on that first one real quick, and then we can move on. Internet marketing. I will tell you, this, Knolly, most real estate agents are terrible marketers. Terrible. They don't know how to do it. And internet marketing is a very specific skill. Can you maybe break that down? Like, what are the components that make up internet marketing, and how would a realtor, a burgeoning top producer use it?
Yeah. So I don't want to get it too complicated, but I'll simplify it. I'm real big into funnel building. I do a lot of funnel building, and I understand the concept of generating the lead and pushing it through sort of this funnel that you create. And all that means is realtors might think of it in terms of like not really a pipeline, but I don't know if there's a better a term for that. But essentially you're lead generating, you're generating the lead, and what happens to that lead? So essentially you've got to generate the lead, you've got to capture the lead, you've got to incubate, and then you've got to convert. So those are the 4 stages. So most realtors that I teach and train that you run across, Toby, they're really good at generating the lead, and then they want to close the lead.
Right.
Like they want to generate, convert. But it really doesn't work that way. You've got to capture, and then you've got to incubate before you can convert. Now, you could generate and convert, your friend's cousin or their mom that did a deal with you in the past. Maybe that could work very quickly because they know, like, and trust you because you did business with their family member. But if you're talking about people that are what we call cold traffic or cold leads, or maybe just a little bit warm, they've got to build a relationship with you before they want to start doing business with you. The reason I like these live events, and even like you said, the anything that puts you in front of people, a podcast would be even much better. Reason I would like the podcasting thing is because you can generate the lead, capture it, incubate it, and convert it within probably 1 or 2 podcast episodes. Mm-hmm. You know, versus it being a lengthy. So, but when it comes to in the internet business, when you look at your web page or your what we call a stealth page or lead generation page, what mechanisms do you have there that are making people want to submit their information so that you can capture them? And then what's your incubation system? Like, how do you drip on that person? Do you have personal phone calls, or are there emails that go out incrementally? And then what's your system for closing that person? You know, most people could probably double their business if they just took care of capturing and incubating. Yeah, I've seen it happen over and over. If they just did those 2 steps without leaving them out, they could probably double their business with the business that they're currently doing.
Right. And I can tell you, like, if you kind of pose that as a question, what are people doing? And you know what? 99.7% of people aren't doing anything. What they try to do, and they fail miserably at it, is if they're doing anything, they're saying, get your free home value here. Give me your name and all
right.
that. You know, right. But that's so, most of them are so inappropriately surfaced, right? Like it's an afterthought. And I think if we take your idea, Knolly, write a book, and you know you should, and that can be right 7 easy ways to increase curb appeal. You know, how to sell your house in 30 days for top dollar, whatever it might be. Offer that free ebook on your website. Give me your name, give me your email address. You automatically get the book. And if you're a smart marketer, you can use something like an Aweber and right. literally write 30, follow-ups to once they get their book, like day 2, day 3. And again, it's all out there. Why aren't people doing this simple stuff, Knolly?
Yeah, and I think the big reason is they're not focused on what's important. And that is every single day you've got a time block. First of all, lead generation, like activity is the most important activity of a successful lister, successful agent, is lead generation. And lead generation is a very deliberate activity. Like you've got to, and so what I've done over the last 10 years is I've blocked out my mornings to do nothing but lead generation. So I do that every single morning, right? And so most people just aren't deliberate. They don't have a. I think it starts with them, and we'll get into philosophy here. But most people don't know what they want. So since they don't know what they want, they can't really put a goal together. Because once you have the goal, and once you're absolutely convinced of the goal, most people have goals and they're not even convinced. Like their own mind doesn't even believe the goals that they put down. I want to make $200,000 this year. Well, their mindset, if you just look at what they actually made, that was their real goal. You made $50,000. You said you wanted $200,000, but you really wanted 50, because if you really wanted 200, guess what? You'd had 200.
Right.
So most people just don't know what they want, and that goes into I've got a whole chapter in my book about that. That whole issue of what you want.
Right. I mean, when you say 200, but you really, you don't believe you can do it. I mean, you're confusing the universe. I mean, the universe will give you what you want. You just got to be deliberate and vocal about it. So I 100% agree with that.
Absolutely.
How does somebody?
Absolutely. But
that's a mindset issue. So how does somebody?
It really is.
And I know you can't coach 80,000 people in the next 2 minutes, but how do you train or how do you change that mindset to having your goals really in alignment?
Yeah, mindset is really I call it like a lifelong study, but I think the simple way to do it is really to become, just be purposeful about becoming more self-aware, more in tune with who you are and what you want as an individual. During your sojourn, your pilgrimage on this planet, what do you want? Like, what do you really want? And that's really I would say that a person needs to, because I'm very, very focused and clear on what I want, but I do it by a lot of reading, and I kind of cringe at the kind of books that we read. Like I've seen your reading list, Toby. It's kind of similar to mine. And most people just won't invest. They just don't care to invest the kind of time that it takes to, to really get themselves in the right mindset.
Right.
But I would say it's just really it's an investment of time. Even if you would dedicate an hour a day, right, or 30 minutes to creating the right mindset, then and I think you could do it through books, but it has to really come first as a desire to really be, to really achieve what you really, or to really know what you want in life to begin with. Does that make sense?
Totally, and I 100%. And I think, I'm in agreement with you. I think, as well as reading books, I think if people could just meditate for 10 minutes, right? And there's an app. There's called Headspace. If you can get quiet and meditate for 5 minutes a day, this clarity, you'll start to get some clarity on what you really want and what you're willing to give up to reach it. When I hear your story, Knolly, and you're a man of faith, how does contribution? What role does contribution have in your life, your business?
Well, that's pretty much my entire life right now is contribution. I'm still an entrepreneur. I like generating revenue, but I've structured my life in such a way, Toby, where I have zero debt. I have no mortgage. I have I've paid everything off. And I did that because I've been on the other side of it where I've had nothing but debt. And I didn't like the way it felt. And I wanted to be able to come from a standpoint of contribution. And I didn't want lack to determine my choices. In other words, I've got to do business with this guy because I need this paycheck or I need this deal or whatever it might be. The way I structure my life now is this the best choice, the highest and best choice that I can make for myself and for this person, And if it's not, fine, even if I might, quote unquote, end up losing, because as you said before, the way the universe is structured, you never really lose. When you make the right choices for your life, you always win, you always gain, So yeah, contribution to me, you can't, what I've come to understand is the way that I'm wired is I can't be happy unless I'm helping others, and I found that out at a convention. This guy, I'll tell you real quickly, this guy walked up behind me. He said, I was in the coffee line at the convention. He said, "Are you Knolly Williams?" I said, "Well, yeah. Yeah, it wasn't too many black cowboys there." Big cowboy hat on. And I said, "Yeah, I'm Knolly Williams." He says, "Man, I want to share with you how you changed my life and helped my family. I'd like to buy you coffee." So as we made our way through this 20-minute coffee line, he proceeded to tell me how he was down to one listing. He had one listing. And he said he could not put food on the table for his family. His family was saying, "You need to get a real job, get out of this real estate thing." He watched a video that I'd done with Tony DeCello. He and I sat down, did a video, and it so changed his thinking. It's a 45-minute video that he took over 60 listings within the next 12 months. And he said, "But what it's really done for me, Knolly, is it's allowed me to put food on the table for my family. That's what you've done for me." And I tell you, Toby, that's what I call the paycheck that I'll never spend. And I'm constantly going after that kind of a paycheck. How can I contribute? How can I pay it forward and impact someone's life to the point where it will have real meaning and purpose, for them. So yeah,
that's awesome.
That's what life's all about.
And I'll share a story with you. I mean, from this show, I get emails on a weekly basis where people go, "You changed everything, right? Your show changed everything," and that's a great feeling. I like just it's awesome. I go to my mailbox and people send me stuff. And they're like, "Thank you." Literally, people will send me an email. They're like, "I got to send you $500, right?" It was because you. So that's a great feeling. I'll tell you as something on the personal side.
Awesome.
Here's the deal. My wife hates it. My wife absolutely hates it because I'll sometimes read them to her. And when she gets mad at me, she'll be like, you have all these people saying how great you are, right? Like, I want that for me. And I'm like, honey, like, you're great. But anyhow, whatever.
Yeah.
We got to start wrapping up.
Yeah, gotcha.
We always ask for a book recommendation. You and I have talked about reading books. Here's the setup, Knolly. I'm an aspiring agent. I have $25. What book should I go buy today? And you already mentioned Gary Keller, so you cannot mention MRE.
Well, I hate to do this, but I would, from a real estate standpoint, I would highly recommend my own book. I hate to recommend my own stuff,
Knolly.
but I've got it.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah, go ahead.
It's Success with Listings. We have it. We basically send it out for free. If you go to successwithlistings.com, just pay the shipping. And it's 430 pages, and it shares, how I took 1,000 listings my first 10 years in the business. It's step by step by step, and MREA is an excellent, great book. This is the practical side of MREA. In other words, how do I put my boots on the ground? I teach a 46-step listing system from the time you take the listing all the way to when you close it and beyond, and I go through step by step in 24 chapters. So I highly recommend that. If that's okay.
Of course. Well, it's free. Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's awesome. And, and look, and this is, you're a marketer. And so this is, I don't want to get into this, but this is your tripwire, right? I'm going to give you a free plus shipping product. And then then you get into Ascension. So what is, again,
absolutely.
So what's the next Ascension product?
The next Ascension product is, now you're starting to speak my language. So the next Ascension product on that is, and I like that term better than some other terms I've heard, by the way, is we've got, I did a boot camp that we did for $395, $400, which we basically recorded. It's 15 episodes, about 40 minutes each, and that's a listings boot camp. And that's for people that like to actually hear it. We didn't video it, but it's audio, and that's $37.
Cool.
If they want to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So there's, and of course, I wrote the book. Like I say, I tell people all the time, write your book, become famous. A lot of people don't want to invest the time to do it. So I've come up with a licensing where they could take my book, pop my picture out, and, they improve the book by doing that, put their picture on it, put their title, and now they've got their own book. They can go right to press with it. It's completely... and it doesn't. There's a licensing fee, but what we show them how to do is go out and get 6 vendors at $99 a piece that completely covers the entire cost. So it's basically like I'm their ghostwriter, and they license the book for me, a copyright license is what it is.
Right. Smart.
And then they've got their own book. Yeah. So
and you know what,
the ones that absolutely won't do what we tell them to do. Yeah.
Right. And so I mean, I think for me as a marketer, what I would do, or I would encourage people to do, right? So they go get the book, or go get Knolly's book. He's going to private label it, or write your own. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
and then
exactly.
go buy super duper cheap 1:30, 2:30 a.m. airtime on your local CBS, NBC station. Cut a 30-second video, and then have Knolly Williams, Toby Salgado, as seen on CBS, as seen on NBC, right? And all of a sudden now, right, in addition, you couple that with your press kit, now all of a sudden you're actually becoming like this a media personage.
Exactly.
That's
a mogul.
Mogul. Yeah. All right, man.
There you go.
One last question, because we're at 57 minutes here, 54 minutes.
Okay.
What's something... And I have 2. Hopefully we can go over. What's something you know now, Knolly, that you wish you would have known when you started?
I want to go probably to the debt issue, to not rack up so much debt. I mean, we're risk takers, right? We're entrepreneurs. But I've learned how to skate on both fences. So I would say to be debt free is a big one for me.
What about, and I think that's great. What about that person? Here's an email that I get on a weekly basis, and it kind of drives me batty. And it's basically, hey, Toby, I have a full-time job. I'm getting into selling real estate, And as soon as I match my current income, and I've heard even other crazier stuff, soon as I can double my income.
That's nuts.
Right.
Yeah.
Then I will go full time. How would you?
Yeah.
What would you say to that person? Because here's what I would say: take the plunge, and when you're starting any kind of business, you have to invest. And I don't mind somebody taking out $10,000 or $15,000 worth of debt in the beginning to start marketing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course. Yeah. No problem with that.
Okay.
In fact, what my wife and I did, I told her, I said, if you work for 1 year and support us while I, realized my dream of starting this record label. So she was the only breadwinner for the family for a full year, right, while I was doing this. I said, but you'll never have to work again if you don't want to. And I kept that promise. A year later, she quit her job, started working with me full time, and she's never had to work outside the home.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got to roll the dice and make the investment. No doubt about it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
No doubt.
Perfect.
No doubt.
All right, man. Well, we got to wrap up. Where can people find more about you, Knolly?
The best place is just at successwithlistings.com. Successwithlistings.com is what I love to teach about. It's going to have all my contact information. And Toby, you're a powerhouse, man.
Thanks,
I
buddy.
have a lot to learn from you.
Thank you, man.
Sure.
And listen, for everybody, all this stuff, Success with Listings, Knolly's contact info, all will be on the show notes, so go check it out at superagentslive.com. Hey, Knolly, thanks, man. I know you're a busy guy. I appreciate you taking time out of your day.
My pleasure.
All right, buddy. Let's talk soon.
Thanks.
See ya.
Take care.
This show is produced by me, Toby Salgado, with help from our research team and production done by Viralcast. If you're building a team and want to make sure you're doing it the most efficient way, reach out to Corcoran Coaching. They coach 83 of the nation's top producing teams. And for our listeners, they'll give you a free business evaluation. Send an email to Bubba at CorcoranCoaching.com and let them know I told you guys to call.